Okay, so ready to take a deep dive into breath, the new science of a lost art
Always ready to talk breathing?
by James Nestor. And it's funny, I realized while reading this, like, we breathe constantly, obviously,
Right, like all the time.
but I never really, think about it, you
It's
know?
so automatic for us, yeah.
And it turns out there's so much more to it than just, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out.
Way more to it.
There's a whole science to it, and it affects everything
Every
from how we sleep to how well we exercise.
emotions, even.
Yeah, all that.
It's pretty wild.
And what I thought was really interesting is that James Nestor doesn't just talk about ancient practices or
Yeah.
sort of esoteric stuff.
Mm.
He really grounds everything in science and research
Yeah.
and his own personal experiences.
Uh-huh.
And he actually participated in this crazy experiment at Stanford
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
where they plugged his nose
For 10 days.
for 10 days. Can you imagine?
I mean, I can't even imagine.
And that's how he kicks off the book, is talking about that
Mm.
and just how much it messed him up.
Oh, yeah,
His blood pressure shot
his
up.
blood pressure went up. He started snoring.
Snoring like
Sleep apnea. It just felt awful overall.
He felt terrible, yeah. But the crazy thing is, his co-participant in this study, they actually saw improvements
Just from breathing exercises.
just by doing breathing exercises, which is kind of wild, right?
Absolutely wild.
And it made me start thinking, have you ever noticed, maybe you feel calmer after taking a few deep breaths?
Oh, for sure.
Or maybe more energized after, I don't know, a brisk walk.
Absolutely. Yeah, you notice those subtle shifts.
Right, but most of us don't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think about how much power we have
Exactly.
just by changing how we breathe.
A lot of untapped potential, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Right.
So then that leads to the question of okay, so where does breathing go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And James Nestor actually says that humans are the worst breathers in the entire animal kingdom. It's true.
Which I found so surprising.
Yeah, it's not something you think about, is it?
No, not at all.
You'd think with all our, advancements in evolution.
Right, exactly. Like we should be good at this.
Right. But turns out our modern lifestyles and our diets
Uh-huh.
have actually kind of changed our facial structure.
Really?
Yeah, our jaws and our nasal passages are actually smaller
Wow.
than they were, way back when.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of us end up breathing through our mouths, and that's
Okay.
kind of, where a lot of the problems start.
Interesting. So why is mouth breathing so bad? I mean, we're still getting air, right?
Well, yeah, we're getting air, but think about it this way. When James Nestor, he went to have his nasal passages examined,
Mm-hmm.
and the doctor described it as this, smooth, moist landscape,
Okay.
designed for airflow, right?
Right.
Your nose filters the air,
Uh-huh.
it warms it, it humidifies it, which mouth breathing doesn't do.
Right, and that dries out your lungs.
Exactly. It's amazing, it's like we have this whole system we don't even think about.
It's so intricate, and it's right there.
Yeah.
And it does even more than that.
Okay.
It actually produces this thing called nitric oxide,
Nitric oxide, yeah.
which is essential for your body to, absorb oxygen properly
Okay.
and for good blood flow.
Interesting.
So it's like this secret ingredient
Mm-hmm.
for better breathing that you miss out on.
When you mouth breathe.
And you mouth breathe, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So we have these amazing noses,
Mm-hmm.
but it sounds like we're really not using them.
Not to their full potential now.
So where do we go from here?
Well, Nestor's book explores a lot of different avenues.
Okay.
One that really stood out to me was his look at ancient breathing techniques.
Yeah, like the Tibetan monks, for example,
Exactly. The Tibetan monks.
who can control their body temperature just through breathing.
It sounds crazy, right?
It does sound crazy. Yeah.
But researchers have actually confirmed that they can do it. Yeah, it's wild.
Wow.
These monks, they've been practicing these breathing exercises for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And these practices, it's not just about body temperature. It's about expanding their lung capacity,
Mm-hmm.
potentially influencing their lifespan. even.
Okay, so that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it is.
So are these ancient practices the key to better breathing?
They definitely offer some valuable insights, yeah.
Okay.
One concept that I really took away from this was this idea of slow breathing.
Wow. Slow breathe.
Taking fewer breaths per minute
Okay.
is actually better for your health.
Huh. Fewer breaths.
Fewer, but deeper,
Okay.
And he did an experiment. He and his co-participant, again, slowed down their breathing
Mm-hmm.
and saw improvements, measurable improvements.
Ah, that's really interesting.
And what's fascinating is that modern research is actually backing this up.
Really?
Yeah. Over-breathing, which a lot of us do without realizing it,
Uh-huh.
can disrupt the body's natural balance
Okay.
and lead to anxiety, even other health issues.
So less is more when it comes to breathing.
It seems that way, yeah.
Interesting. He even talks about how giving people supplemental oxygen for a long time
Can be detrimental?
can actually be bad for them.
Yeah,
That's hard to wrap my head
I
around.
know, right? Like less oxygen, how can that be better?
Exactly.
But it's not about less oxygen, it's about balance.
Okay.
Because when you breathe too much, you expel too much carbon dioxide,
Right.
and your body needs that.
For what?
Well, to regulate your breathing,
Okay.
your pH levels.
Interesting.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this actually brings us to another surprising connection that James Nestor made in the book.
Okay, what's that?
Chewing
Chewing?
and breathing.
Really? I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So he found that chewing can actually strengthen the muscles in your jaw
Okay.
and expand your airways.
Huh.
He even experimented with chewing this Turkish gum
Okay.
for hours and hours and said it improved his breathing.
Wow, so maybe my mom was right when she said chew your food.
Right.
Like, really chew it.
There's something to that.
Interesting. But
Yeah.
it makes you think, like, with our modern diets and all the soft processed foods, maybe we're not getting enough of that jaw-strengthening, airway-opening chewing that we need.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But let's shift gears a little bit,
Oh.
because James Nestor also delves into how breathing affects our minds and our emotions.
Oh, absolutely. Big part of the book.
Yeah, and he tells this fascinating story about a woman,
SM?
who actually lacked the amygdala,
The amygdala, wow.
which is the part of the brain that controls fear.
Mm-hmm.
So she literally couldn't feel panic.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's incredible, yeah, but what does that have to do with breathing?
Well, it shows how interconnected our breath and our nervous system really are.
Okay.
You know how you take a few deep breaths and you calm down?
Yeah.
Well, that's because you're actually directly influencing your nervous system
Huh.
through your breath. And in SN's case, because she didn't have the amygdala,
Right.
she couldn't have that panic response.
So by controlling our breath, we're essentially controlling our nervous system.
To a certain extent, yeah,
That's pretty wild.
it is. And this is where his exploration of specific breathing techniques gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah. He talks about techniques for everything.
Everything, yeah.
Relaxation to athletic performance.
For sleep,
Yeah.
focus, all sorts of things.
It's not just one size fits all.
No, not at all.
There are different techniques for different purposes.
Exactly.
That's really cool. But before we get into the specifics of those, I'm kind of curious. Like, what does James Nestor conclude from all of his research?
Well, one thing he really laments is that modern medicine has kind of forgotten about the power of breathing.
Interesting.
He thinks it should play a bigger role
Okay.
in treating all sorts of conditions.
Like what?
Well, from sleep apnea to anxiety,
Yeah.
even.
It's almost like we've overlooked this incredible tool we have.
It's right under our noses,
Yeah.
literally.
Literally, yeah, exactly.
It's true, and it makes you think.
It does.
If something as simple as breathing
Yeah,
can have such a profound impact, what else are we missing?
that's a great question.
Isn't it?
And it's definitely something to ponder
For sure.
as we continue this deep dive into breath.
I'm excited to keep exploring it.
Me too. There's so much more to uncover.
Yeah, it's a big question.
It makes you think, though I did see some criticisms
Oh, yeah.
of the book. Some people think that, he oversimplifies things,
Okay.
like complex medical issues,
Right.
and that there needs to be more research on some of these breathing techniques.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to be cautious
Always.
about, health advice.
Absolutely.
But even taking all that into consideration, I still think it's such a valuable reminder
Oh, yeah.
of how much power our breath has.
Totally.
Like, it made me way more aware
Mm.
of just, like, how I'm breathing.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, right?
Yeah, totally. And, he also talks about how different cultures have viewed breathing
Mm-hmm.
throughout history, which I thought was really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so many traditions have all these breathing techniques
It's fascinating.
built into, like, their spiritual and medical practices.
Yeah, and it seems like almost every culture has something.
Right.
From, like, the yogis in India to the shamans in the Amazon.
Yeah, it's really all over the place.
They all recognize the importance of breath.
For physical and mental well-being.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes sense.
And there's a common thread.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, what's that?
They almost always emphasize nasal breathing
Over mouth breathing.
over mouth breathing. Yeah.
Which, again, makes sense.
Right. It all comes back to that.
Yeah, with the filtering and
The
warming.
nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide, yeah.
It's like these ancient practices,
Mm.
even though they might seem kind of mystical or esoteric,
Right.
often have a basis in like how our respiratory system actually works.
Right, so they were onto something.
They were onto something. Yeah.
It's cool how it's like ancient wisdom meeting modern science.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a nice kind of blend. And it reminds me that we shouldn't dismiss traditional knowledge
Right.
just because it doesn't like perfectly fit into our current scientific understanding.
Exactly.
There's a lot we can learn from those traditions.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that James Nestor really emphasizes is
Yeah.
how modern medicine has, in a way, kind of overlooked breathing.
It's true.
He says we're too focused on
Mhm.
treating symptoms with pills and procedures
Mm-hmm.
instead of getting to the root cause.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too.
And it makes me think of this whole movement towards holistic healthcare.
Right, where it's about treating the whole person.
Exactly, not just isolated symptoms.
And breathing fits into that perfectly.
Yeah, it's something that, regardless of your health status,
Yeah.
you can control.
Mm-hmm.
You have that power.
It's something everyone has access to.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that really struck me in the book
Okay.
was how much he talks about the importance of breathing in athletic performance.
Oh, for sure.
It's obviously essential.
Yeah, you need to breathe to move.
Right. But he goes beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
He gets into like how specific breathing techniques can boost your performance.
It's amazing the difference it can make.
Yeah, and help you go for
Help us
longer.
recover faster.
Yeah, recover faster. And he even talks about like elite athletes.
Oh, yeah. He profiles a bunch of them.
Like Sonia Richards-Ross,
The sprinter.
the Jamaican-American sprinter.
Yeah.
Yeah, she won multiple Olympic gold medals.
She's incredible.
And she used breathing techniques to help her like dominate.
That's a great example.
Yeah, it's really inspiring.
It shows how even at the highest level,
Mm-hmm.
controlling your breath can make a difference.
Yeah, it makes you wonder
Mhm.
if, even if you're not an Olympic athlete,
Right.
we could all benefit from incorporating some of these things into our workouts.
I think so, too.
And that actually brings me back to that chapter on chewing.
Oh, yeah, the chewing.
That was such a surprise to me.
I know, right? It's not something you'd immediately think of.
No, I never would have guessed that, like, chewing could improve breathing.
But it makes sense when you think about the anatomy.
Yeah.
Like your face and your jaw.
Right. And how it can help.
Chewing strengthens those muscles
Strengthen the muscle.
that keep your airways open.
Yeah, especially while we sleep, which is important.
Exactly.
He even tried chewing Turkish gum.
For hours, he said.
For hours.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to try that.
Should.
I'm always up for a good experiment.
Let me know how it goes.
But it makes you think, like, even something as simple as that
Yeah.
can potentially help.
It's all connected.
It really is. And it makes me wonder, too, we've talked about chewing, we've talked about slowing down our breathing. But he also has some interesting things to say about breathing less,
Less.
which seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, because we're always told, like, take deep breaths.
Right. Get that oxygen.
Yeah, get that oxygen.
But his argument is that when you overbreathe,
Mm-hmm.
you take in too much air and you actually mess up your body's natural balance
Of oxygen and carbon dioxide.
of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Yeah.
And that can lead to problems.
Well, he says it can.
Okay.
All sorts of problems, from anxiety to fatigue,
Okay.
even heart problems. He said.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
So it's like too much of a good thing can be bad.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder if we've been overemphasizing oxygen and forgetting about the role of carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide is important too.
Yeah, it's all about balance.
Balance is key.
And what I really love about this book is that
Yeah.
he doesn't just like throw out a bunch of ideas about breathing.
Mm-hmm.
He actually gives you practical guidance and specific techniques
Yeah, stuff you can actually use.
that you can use.
Right.
Like I was actually highlighting and taking notes
Yeah,
because there's so much good stuff in here.
And he explains it all so clearly.
He does. Yeah, he covers like a range of techniques
Mhm.
from simple ones like alternate nostril breathing.
Oh, yeah, that one's a classic.
Yeah, to more advanced practices.
Like the Sudarshan Kriya,
Sudarshan Kriya, yeah, which is a powerful,
ancient yogic technique.
yeah, breathing technique.
Powerful stuff.
And he explains the science behind them, the history,
Yeah.
the potential benefits, and he even talks about his own experiences.
Which I think is really helpful.
It is, yeah.
Makes it feel more relatable.
It does. It feels like you're on this journey with him,
Totally.
which is really cool. One of the most inspiring parts for me, though, was when he talked about the healing power of breathing.
Yeah.
He shares stories about people who have overcome chronic illnesses, managed pain,
Improve their quality of life
improved their quality of life
through breath work.
through breath work. It's really remarkable.
It is.
And he highlights doctors and researchers who are starting to incorporate these techniques into their medical practices.
Which is encouraging to see.
It is encouraging.
Feels like the medical community is finally catching on.
Yeah, to this like ancient wisdom.
Right, and how powerful it can be.
Yeah, it's like we're moving towards a more holistic and
Integrated.
integrated approach to healthcare,
Yeah, for sure.
which is really exciting. You know, one of the most thought-provoking parts for me
Okay.
was when he talked about how breathing connects us to something bigger than ourselves.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
He talks about breath being this like
Yeah,
universal life force that flows through all living things,
yeah, connecting us all.
connecting us to each other, connecting us to nature.
And to the universe, even.
Yeah, I guess
Even delves into the spiritual side of breathing a little bit.
he does, like how different traditions have used breathing practices to like connect with the
It's
divine.
through higher states of consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a whole other dimension to the book.
It goes beyond just the science.
More philosophical.
Yeah, and even spiritual.
Yeah, I really appreciated that.
It's beautiful.
It is.
It reminds us that breath isn't just about like taking in air. It's about connecting to something much bigger.
Something more profound.
And that makes me really curious
Okay, about
the potential of breath work to actually like expand human consciousness.
Yeah, he mentions it briefly.
He does, yeah.
Talking about those ancient traditions that used breathing to enter like altered states of consciousness.
Yeah, and there's more and more research coming out about breath work as a therapy for things like trauma and addiction, even.
It's a fascinating field.
It is. It's really fascinating.
It's growing so quickly.
Yeah, it's exciting to see where it goes.
Me too.
Because it really does feel like
Yeah.
we're just beginning to understand the true power of breathing.
I think you're right.
And that's what makes this book so compelling. It opens your mind to possibilities that you might never have considered before.
And it all starts with something so simple.
Yeah.
Just taking a breath.
It's amazing.
It really is.
It's like a reminder that the most profound changes often come from the simplest acts.
So well said.
It makes me want to take a few deep breaths right now.
Me too. How about you?
It really is amazing.
Right. Like, who knew?
Yeah, just like that we have this power within us
It's always there.
all along.
We just got to tap into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So breath definitely makes a strong case for, the importance of breathing.
It does. Yeah. It really highlights.
And I feel like I'm walking away from this deep dive with a heightened awareness
For sure.
of my own breathing.
That's a good thing.
It is, yeah. And I definitely want to explore some of those techniques.
Which ones are you thinking about trying?
I'm really interested in that alternate nostril breathing.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, it seems really simple.
It is. It's easy to do.
And effective.
And you can do it anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like even while we're recording.
Right here, right now.
Maybe we should try it.
Maybe let's finish the deep dive first.
Okay, good point. But I think that's one of the most valuable things about this book is like it empowers us.
Gives you the tools.
Yeah, it gives you the tools
To take control.
to actually take charge of our well-being.
And it all starts with something so simple, like you said,
It all starts with the breath.
the breath.
And on that note, dear listener, I have a challenge for you.
Ooh, a challenge.
Yeah, I know, right? So for the next few days, I want you to really pay attention to your breath.
Become aware of it.
Yeah, just notice how you breathe in different situations. Try out some of those techniques we talked about.
Yeah, experiment a little.
Yeah, see how it affects you physically, mentally.
You might be surprised.
Yeah, who knows what you'll discover.
It's a journey, right?
It is, it's a journey.
And like James Nestor said, the breath is always with us.
Ooh, I love that quote.
Me too. It's so powerful.
It's our constant companion, our life force, our connection to the universe.
It's deep stuff.
Deep stuff. So, as we take our final breath here,
For now.
yeah, we'll leave you with this thought.
Okay, hit me with it.
What if the key to unlocking our full potential isn't about searching for something external,
Interesting.
but about rediscovering the power within?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, and it all begins with something as simple as breathing.
Powerful stuff.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into breath.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep breathing.